Hey y'all. Alright, MsMalcolmHughes back again with another book review, and this time we are doing A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. I want to start by saying that I researched this book so much. Like, I kind of heard about him, had only heard good things, have a couple friends from Jamaica. They were like, you who love books need to read Marlon James. So I kind of became fixated prior to reading this book with Marlon James. Like, I watched a lot of his interviews, I watched him talk about this book a lot. It made me really upset that I hadn't kind of been up on it when this book came out, because I kind of missed him touring about this book, and I would have liked to have like talked to him or just be in a space and hear what he was saying. But all of that is to say that I hyped myself up on this book prior to reading it. So when I actually got the book, I was like, oh man, this book is gonna probably like not live up to my expectations. I'm now expecting too much. And let me just say this book is worth all of the hype. Like, it is a winner of like the Man Booker Prize, and it's like a huge deal to make it comparable. It's like winning a Pulitzer in America. It's like the European version of that. Definitely, again, worth the hype. This is also one of the first books I think in a while where, like, if I'm reading it on the train or sometimes walking down the street, or if I just have it in my hands while I'm out and about, people will stop me and be like, isn't this so good? And like want to have a conversation about it. And that's always kind of indicative of a really good book. That's one of the things I love about books. I think that's one of the reasons why I also love Harry Potter so much, because it's like a community. Anytime I'm out wearing anything like Harry Potter related, whether that's Gryffindor gear, whether it's Hogwarts gear, whether it's like a Harry Potter book in my hand, someone always has something to say and it always sparks conversation. So that's one of the things that I love most about books, is just that they bring people together. And this is one of the like first books I've read in a long time that has done that when I've been out and about. So that's always a beautiful thing. Now, let's dig into the book. So this book, the kind of central focus of this book is that it is centered around the assassination attempt on Bob Marley in Jamaica. In the book, I think that Marlon James kind of says Bob Marley's name once, maybe twice. But for the most part, he's just referred to as the singer. And though that is kind of like everything is centered around that, I wouldn't say it's a central focus. Like, because as the book continues to expand, it's about so much more than that. It's about kind of the war for Jamaica. Kind of, it focuses on the Cold War with America's involvement, Cuba's involvement, Jamaica, like that war that was going on between like capitalism and communism, and what was Jamaica going to be. And everyone kind of wanted a piece of it. It kind of hones in on just like the levels of corruption that were happening. And I think one thing that makes this book so unique and so hard for people, like anytime you see a review on this book, people will say it's very challenging. This book has, like, whenever I tell people, I'm always like, it has like 200 characters. Like, it's written from the perspective of like 200 different people. And that's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's definitely like, I'm gonna show you, it's definitely a good number of like characters. So that's page 1 of characters, page 2 and 3 of characters, and then it also goes to page 4 of characters. So as you're getting into the book, each chapter is kind of like a different person's perspective, and not every chapter, like some chapters are like multiple of the same person, but each chapter goes and jumps into a different person. And kind of what makes it challenging as well is James doesn't really give you an introduction. He just plops you right into the middle, and it's kind of like, follow this story, make sense of it. You're really into these you're in these people's minds, you're experiencing it with them wherever they are. And sometimes you're like midway through a chapter before you realize what's happening. And I can say the last part of this book, because it is broken up, most of it happens in Jamaica, some of it toward the end happens in New York, some of it also happens in Miami. Like, so you kind of have to really focus. For me, each time there was a new character, I kind of went back to the like character breakdown and I wrote who that person was. And that really helped because you can easily get lost. And having to do that repetition, eventually you remember who these people are. So that was helpful each time as well. I kind of don't want to give too much about the characters or too much into like what happens when they get to America, because truly when getting to like the final chapters after Bob Marley dies, so the assassination attempt on Bob Marley obviously isn't effective, but Bob Marley does die, we all know that. So after his death, because I walked into this with the impression that it was focused around the like assassination attempt on Bob Marley, so once he died, initially I was like, this book should have ended. I don't know why this book is still going. Like, but as it progresses and if you stick with it, it is a masterpiece. And in his interviews, he said he set out to write this epic story and he absolutely like succeeded. One of the reviews on here is just that, I forget which one it was, maybe it's not on here, but it was definitely a review that I read. Someone said this book is nearly perfect, and they are correct. There are some lows, like there are some periods. There was one chapter, I want to say it was like a Nina Burgess chapter, where I was just like, this is going on for way too long. But in retrospect, you realize why that Nina Burgess chapter was so long, why it's significant. Like, I don't want to give away details on the characters, but all of it makes sense. All of it is interconnected. Finding out what happens post the death of Bob Marley and what happens to all these characters who are somehow linked to his assassination or in Jamaica during that time, or were somehow like connected loosely to him, or who pieced together what actually happened to him. You want to know what happens to these characters. And this is a longer book. It is 688 pages, so it's a longer book, not the longest I've ever read. I think Roots still takes the cake for that for me. But it could have been longer. Like, when this book ended, he said that I think he still had like, I think he cut like 10,000 words from this book at the end, so that was like a significant number of pages still. So this book could have been like, so I mean, yeah, 10,000 words, so it still could have been so much longer. And I see why it ended. I think it was a great ending. I think that if you hadn't figured out how the characters connect, the end definitely brings it full circle and you walk away understanding all of it. But I feel like it could have been longer. Like, I could have kept reading. It's amazingly well written. Some people also, I guess, are a little confused by the patois, and they don't necessarily understand it, so they find it hard to follow. I personally didn't find it challenging, and I don't think that the reason I didn't find it challenging is because I have friends from Jamaica. I just think that given the context, it wasn't too hard to read. There's also some Spanish in here that he doesn't translate, and he did say that he loves that Junio Diaz, like in his writing, doesn't translate it, and that's one of the things I love about reading Junio as well. So, but I also like speak a little Spanish, and I understand and can read a whole lot more than I speak. So for me, that's also not a challenge, but I also think that it's not that hard. Like, I don't think that it's outside of the context. Like, I think without knowing Spanish, you could follow, or you could easily like Google it, or hopefully, you know, you maybe have a friend that you can ask. I like to think that we all have diverse groups of friends, right? So there's the internet, there's friends, like, and there's context clues. So another thing that I think makes this like just great is that there's so many lines that I underlined throughout reading it, and it's just, I'm in love with words. Like, I write, I love to read. I'm just in love with like words and what they make you feel. And for me, what makes this book just so profound is just that sometimes it's just like a sentence that maybe outside the context just seems like but it's so profound for this. So I'm gonna pull out just one that I opened up to, and it says, "Learn this, all nice and decent people. Mama Lo didn't raise no son who walked with he back straight to get spit on like mangy dog. Or nobody, and I mean nobody, can learn nothing if them not ready to listen. And it's just, maybe you need to be in the context of it, but it's just so powerful. Or this one, some people just have this thing about themselves, maybe it's a ghetto thing, where even if another man don't destroy you, you go and destroy yourself. Every man in the ghetto born with it, but somehow the singer cure it, right? And it's just so powerful in these moments, and it's so well written. Like, I literally, like, each character, you feel like you're truly transported into the mind of that character. Like, it doesn't feel like Marlon James writing for this character. Is, you can really tell he kind of engulfed himself and allowed the characters to like take over him and for them to tell their own stories. It is a masterpiece. It is brilliant. I feel like I learned more. I don't know if this would be classified as like historical fiction, but I definitely feel as if I learned a lot more than I knew. One of my really good friends, she's from Jamaica, and she often talks to me about like the connection between Cuba and Jamaica, because I realized there were so many Jamaicans in Cuba, and I was just like, why? And then we had that conversation, and then reading this, and it all just like makes so much more sense. So I think that one of the things I love about books, another thing that I love about books, is that it connects all of us, and it makes us realize we're not different, and that we're all human. And outside of traveling and seeing that for yourself, recommend that for everyone. I think books do that, and I think before I ever went abroad, books told me that. Like, I remember being younger and reading the Joy Luck Club and by Amy Tan. I think that was the first time that I realized that we are all a lot more alike than we are different. And like through my travels, I've definitely only realized that, and that's only been affirmed. So I think that everyone should read books by different authors and different cultures, and whether you agree or disagree, I think that having that knowledge and information is important and impactful. I think that everyone should travel, and one thing on my blog is that I'm going to work on writing about my travels more and the lessons that I've learned. So again, as we're in the last quarter of 2018, I do plan on doing a lot more with my blog and hopefully this channel, and being more consistent as we move into 2019. So thank you all for sticking with me. A lot of new exciting things coming, and I'm just appreciating you all with me on this journey as I grow. So the books that I'm reading for the final quarter of 2018 will be coming soon. But until next time, as always, remember to give time and to have the best day of your life. Bye.
Pretty, witty, girly, worldly, one who likes to party but come home early.